Well, hello there.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome back to Bloom Talks. And today we are going to be talking about the same thing that we've been talking about for the last few talks, and the same thing that everybody is talking about in their lives in general, and that is the COVID 19 challenge that we're all living in this new world, this new reality that some people are calling the new normal. We don't know if this is going to continue or for how long it's going to continue to be normal, or when it begins to feel like this is normal. But we do know that for good reason, it is preoccupying our attention and our concern, actually, for a lot of good reasons. And we want to do something today that will be an example of something that you might want to consider doing, which is taking a look at what the opportunities in this crisis are presenting to us and how we can take advantage of them without necessarily denying the seriousness of it. We're not in any way saying that, oh, this is a wonderful growth opportunity. This is terrific. I'm so glad that, I've lost my job, or I'm so glad that I can't leave the house anymore. I'm not saying that at all. But what we are wanting to affirm is that, yes, this is serious stuff, and everybody watching this, as well as the rest of the world, pretty much, is involved with and concerned about a change in our reality that has not only been unexpected, but it's unprecedented.
Mm-hmm.
And as we spoke about in a couple of weeks ago, that we're in a crisis, and a crisis uh, means that there's danger, but there's also opportunity. So we want to talk about some of the things that are that we're challenged to deal with here, and how we can be more effective in doing that. So the title of our talk today is it's actually a question and an answer. Um, uh, the question is, are you fighting more these days? And we have been speaking to quite a few people lately, including each other, who feel that, yeah, we are fighting more these days. And we're going to talk about why that is,
Mm-hmm.
and how we can take advantage of the learning opportunities that are present here now, how we can really learn how to be more effective combatants.
So, we are all taking the crash course in stress reduction. And everybody that I talk to is experiencing some stress, some people medium, some small, some people a lot of stress. And if we can name it and we can trace where the stress is coming from, we can admit to it, we can own that we're feeling some stress. And as Charlie said, one of the symptoms of stress is that people have a shorter fuse. They're more apt to be irritated or angry and to enter into conflict. Things that normally might roll right off when we're tense and we're stressed have a stronger impact on us. So, one of the stresses comes from being sequestered at home. The introverts may find it wonderful because they like to keep it quiet, not be out in the world so much, but they may be having trouble sequestering inside their own home, and they need to negotiate for their time away. And they may need to put a sign on the door, I'm taking an hour, or I'm taking 2 hours to myself. I need my solitude. The extroverts, like me on the other side of the spectrum, maybe feeling stressed because we don't have our normal avenues to be with people. So we have to be resourceful about Skype, Zoom, text, phone calls, even old fashioned cards and letters to stay connected with people to bring our stress level down. Another form of stress that's hitting people is being out of work and worried about how long they're going to be out of work, how they're going to pay the rent, how they're going to pay food, how they're going to make the car payment, how they're going to make the mortgage payment. The financial changes that have come abruptly with so many people out of work and not knowing when they're going to be able to go back to work, and people's stock portfolio falling, people have a very high level of stress about the material part of their world. The antidote to that, of course, is to find a larger overview. And we can learn something from the 1918 Spanish flu epidemic that killed millions of people around the world, and there was a deep economic decline. It took years to repair, but the economy did right itself. And this economy is going to come back. Nobody has any idea how long it's going to take, but to trust that we can live more simply, to trust that the lifestyle that we may have been living before, we could cut back and we could survive quite well and live a happy life, and it will recover in time.
So before you continue with some of the other factors that are contributing to the stress, I just want to mention kind of an overall umbrella factor that affects everything. And that is, it's not so much the details of the specific effects that the virus is having, which of course is huge and it's of concern to everybody, but it's the general state of uncertainty and unpredictability and living in a state of inability to really understand how long, what's it going to take, what are we going to have to deal with when we move through this experience, the what's, the whys, the hows, all of that stuff, which in our ordinary lives, our pre-virus lives, we had pretty clear sense about, even though, we may not have been accurate about what we expected. The old joke about the way to make God laugh is to make plans. But we had been living in a world in which we, whether they were accurate or not, we had confidence in our expectations of what we could expect in the immediate, in the moderate, and in the distant future. Mm-hmm. And that does provide a certain amount of feeling of security, even though it could be illusory. I mean, it could be that what we're expecting is not going to happen. But the feeling that we know, or the illusion that we know, does provide us with a certain amount of tranquility, of trust, of confidence. That's gone. Mm-hmm. That rug has been pulled out from under us. And we are now living in the reality that we had been denying for most of our lives, that we don't know. Mm-hmm. You see, we never have really known, but we have felt like we know, and we have acted in accordance with that. And we have done things that sort of affirm that, yeah, that's true, that's right. I do have some accurate sense, understanding, picture of what the future holds, so I can make plans. Well, you may have noticed that it's really tough to make plans these days. I mean, you can make them, but it's hard to trust and have confidence that they can, or when they will be able to be honored. So we've all got this piece of uncertainty profound uncertainty
Mm-hmm.
that our nervous system has to deal with. And as a result, we have a shorter fuse. We have less available emotional and intellectual energy available to attend to um, our own our own inner world.
And I talked to somebody about a week or 10 days ago, and I posed that question of, do you see any opportunity in the circumstance that we were in?
Yeah.
And he said, nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
That he's so stressed and he's so ungrounded because his certainty and his security has been ripped out from under him. And there wasn't even an opening there with this particular conversation that I was having with this person to even investigate whether there might be some redeeming value in opening to the possibility of what the Buddhists called don't know mind.
So what do you do when you encounter somebody, and it could be your spouse, it could be your child, it could be your best friend, when you encounter somebody who has no capacity to disengage from that feeling of hopelessness, impossibility, and despair? How do you deal with that?
I wouldn't try to push this person at all because I felt a rigidity there and a lack of openness. I just felt sad for them that they didn't see that there's an extraordinary opportunity here to be in the void, to be in the don't know, and that really can serve us all of our life from now on, because we don't always see things coming. And to be able to have that kind of flexibility, to be able to meet life's challenges without resisting them so hard and fighting them or feeling sorry for ourselves, feeling that we're pitiful victims of things, circumstances, and so forth. I see it as an extraordinary opportunity. I've been one of these people who liked it all tacked down. I like the comfort and predictability and security. To the degree that I've been able to cultivate don't know mind, I feel like it really serves me. It's serving me now.
So we all wish only peace and happiness for the people that we love. And some of us even extend that feeling of desiring that and compassion and goodwill to people outside of their immediate circle. But when there's somebody in our immediate circle that we see is suffering, and we see and we have experienced something that has enabled us to be able to find something to grab onto that can assuage some of our anxiety and insecurity, of course we want them to see what we can see so that their suffering is alleviated to some degree. But
not everybody's open.
Well, not only that's true. I mean, we've all been in a position where we're absolutely convinced that something is destined to be the way it is now, with this sense of futility, this sense of hopelessness, this sense of impossibility. We all know what it's like to be there. So one of the questions that you might want to ask yourself, if you are close to somebody who really is suffering with this sense of despair and hopelessness, which many people are, understandably, is to ask yourself, when I was in that state, what is it that I needed from the people in my life? What is it that I needed that would have helped me to tolerate that incredible pain of being so consumed by hopelessness? So that's a good question for us to ask ourselves, because that may be what that person needs. They may not need some advice or direction or opinion about what they should do. What they might need is something else.
Right. I want to talk about another big source of stress that a lot of people are going through right now. The kids are home from school. So, as much as we love and adore our precious children, a lot of us never went into early childhood education because we knew we didn't have the patience to be with little kids all day long, round the clock. Now, some people are in areas where the teachers are going on teaching the kids virtually, but a lot of families don't have that opportunity to have their children being schooled at home with technology assisting. And as much as we love them, it's a source of stress to have to keep our children entertained and to teach them on a regular basis all day, every day.
And to keep them from killing each other
Yeah.
while they're fighting.
And some people have adult children who've been off of college who came home, and that's a lot of strong opinions and strong personalities under the same roof. So it's not just little kids, it's a lot of different needs and different styles of being in the world. And the kids who are busy individuating, do you know, they're not having an opportunity to do that as freely because people are confined. So we have stress coming at us from all different directions. It is our intention to normalize if you're feeling tense and stress. Welcome, welcome to the tribe. There's a lot of us who are experiencing that, no matter where it's coming from. There's 20% of the population that are HSPs. That means highly sensitive persons. We got a nervous system that really feels things strongly. Those of us who have that are feeling it even more than the regular population is, the 80% of the population. We are challenged, just like everybody, only more so, to have our stress reduction techniques really working for us. Deep breathing. Some people rely heavily on meditation. Some people need exercise. You may need to run around your house.
Everybody needs exercise.
You may need to run around your yard. Maybe you don't feel comfortable to run down your street, but we need exercise, yoga stretches, running in place. If you have a jump rope, that's a real good stress reducer. Some people may be trying things that they haven't really done regularly before, like journaling, and sit down and release their emotional constipation by finding words to express what it is that's frightening them or making them tense or bothering them or making them irritable. Hot baths. I'm a big fan of hot water. Doing some homemade massage with each other, listening to music, watching movies, reading. There are so many things, creative expression, that can bring our stress level down. I have two friends who are writing memoirs, and in this extra time available, they're really making headway on their memoirs. Maybe you've had that dancing on the edge of your imagination to write a blog, to write a short story, to write a poem. It may really help you. And every one of us is challenged to find the stress reduction methods that really work for us and use them on a daily basis rather than just gritting our teeth and bearing it. This could be an opportunity to get really good at resilience and knowing how to bounce back from adversity and lower our stress sooner rather than later.
So getting back to the question of whether or not you're fighting more and why, it's probably become pretty apparent to you that we're all dealing in our own ways with having a more limited supply of attention and energy available to deal with the new challenges that are on our plate now. And if you're like most people and you're in a primary relationship, you may have noticed that you have attracted somebody whose personality and whose predispositions are different from yours. So we've talked about this phenomenon before. It's the concept of complementarity, where we tend to draw people in who are not exactly like us because it provides us with a means of expanding our repertoire of perspectives and even values in some ways. So when there's two people, and each one of which is experiencing stress because we're in this new, seemingly uncontrollable, unknowable new world, and we each have different and in some ways conflicting ways of managing our stress. Like for instance, the example that Linda had mentioned that we've spoken about before here of introverts and extroverts. And the classic distinction there is an introvert turns within to process and reflect upon his or her own feelings in order to manage stressful situations. An extrovert, it's the opposite. Their initial impulse is to talk to somebody else, to engage, to connect. And so if you've got two people, each one of whom is experiencing high levels of stress, and they each need the opposite of what the other one needs, as you can see, that's really a setup for disaster.
Please, may I give another example? That's a great example.
Hypothetical, right?
Okay.
This is hypothetical.
There's one person who can only take a limited amount of exposure to the news reports on the TV, on the computer, and on the radio. That would be me. Right. I'm maxed out. If I listen an hour a day, that's all I can take because my stress goes up. Other people can be on the news reports for hours a day.
More information helps you to be more confident. You're more in control. The more information, the better, right?
Stress. But everybody needs to know how much exposure to all these conflicting reports with the experts who are flying by the seat of their pants, making it up as they go along, but talking about it as if it's, handed down from Mount Sinai, that if you're overdoing it, exposing yourself to the news reports, particularly if it's offensive to your partner because they don't want to be exposed that much, you may need to listen with earphones or behind a closed door because people have differences about that.
And sometimes one person not only wants to absorb more information, but they want to share that information with the other person because it's so important. Yeah. And you have to understand this.
Opportunity for boundary setting. Big opportunity for boundary setting. So what is I'm maxed out right now. That's all I want to hear. Okay.
Yeah. So you've got to be willing to recognize when, hey, dude, I don't want to hear anymore. I'm saturated. I'm maxed out. And then you've got to, the other person has got to be willing to very respectfully say, thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. And I won't talk to you about this anymore until 3 minutes later, they're bubbling over with more stuff that they have to say. So you may have to draw that line more than once. And you may have to encourage that person to be speaking, to remind them that, hey, you know what? There are other people in the world who would probably love to hear you talk about this.
And refer them out.
I don't happen to be one of them
refer
right now.
Them out.
But you might want to call your friend Harry or Elizabeth or whoever it is that you get into these rants with, and maybe talk to them, or else just please, take it away because I don't want to hear any more of it right now. I'll let you know when I'm open to hearing more.
Mm-hmm. I want to say one more thing, a plug for committing ourselves to being in the don't know. Even the people who is this their major form of life study, they don't really know. They don't really know how long this is going to last for, when the virus is going to peak and go on the wane, even, when we're going to be able to normalize our life, because even after it peaks, there's still going to be a dangerous period. They don't know how long. And so to not get too hooked on somebody who's giving us their best guess or their hopeful guess about when things are going to normalize, to be willing to be in the don't know, to take it on as a challenge and opportunity to relax into and to surrender into and make it up as we go along. I just think that's an exquisite life skill to have.
So before we finish up, we just want to underscore what we consider to be probably the single most important thing that you can do to keep your sanity in the midst of seemingly insane times. And that is the phrase responsible self-care.
Yeah.
Responsible self-care basically means that I am taking responsibility for fulfilling the needs that I have for well-being. In other words, if my life isn't providing me with the experience that I want to have, if I'm overwhelmed with upset, with anxiety, with stress, with confusion, and I'm not sleeping well, and I'm obsessive, and I'm
or not getting enough privacy or enough connection with other people,
I take responsibility for that, which doesn't mean that I have to do all that alone. I might need to call in some troops to help me to manage some of the things, but that I don't hold anybody else responsible for getting me the experience that I want to have, for taking away my pain, my anxiety, my confusion, my fear, my loneliness. I don't hold anybody responsible for that. That is a setup if we are expecting that this other person is the cause of my distress and therefore is the answer to the relief of my distress.
And here's one more important point to remember about reducing stress. In addition to care of self, we need to care for the relationship and care of other. They're both essential. So if, because we have a short fuse and we're stressed and tense, we fly off the handle about some little thing, medium-sized things or big thing, to remember to repair. As soon as we mess up, fess up, apologize, put the correction in. We're going to have more opportunities to practice becoming champions of repair in this stressful situation than we ever wanted to have. And this is a great life skill to get good at it in the high excellence category right now while we're taking the crash course in stress reduction, because that's a way to reestablish the good rapport and the feelings of goodwill and to put the trust back when we fly off the handle because we're uptight.
And you're going to have more opportunities to learn more about these opportunities in the future. And continue, because we're going to be continuing these talks that are focused on this specific aspect of our current reality until such time, and it will come, that this moves into the background and there's room for other things to show up in the foreground.
So more on stress reduction next week. If you know people, family, friends, neighbors, co-workers, who you see are suffering with stress, that you feel this video might help normalize it for them, that we're all stressed out more or less, and that there are ways to take on the challenge of being stressed with effective, skillful choices that we can make, and that we can share the wealth of information, please tell them to take a look at the video. And it was great to see you this week, and we hope to see you next week for more about stress reduction in the COVID-19 challenge.
Take care.